Guys, welcome to Chase's Theater. We are going to be counting down the top 10 movies of the entire decade as it comes to a close. My name's Chase. This is Hunter. This is Sam. We're going to give you our individual lists. We're going to go honorable mentions. Then I'm going to give my 10 through 6, Hunter 10 through 6, Sam 10 through 6, 5 through 2, 5 through 2, 5 through 2, 1, 1, 1. And if someone has a movie placed higher on their list, we're going to wait to talk about it until we get to them. First, we're going to start off with our honorable mentions. I actually don't have any because I'd have to include like 50, so I just decided not to have any. But you guys can go ahead.
All right, so my honorable mentions were Edge of Tomorrow, which definitely watch it if you haven't seen it.
Awesome movie.
Dunkirk, awesome movie. And then Endgame, obviously awesome movie. Another honorable mention to have is The Wolf of Wall Street.
Same.
My honorable mentions are Infinity War, Moonlight, Ford vs. Ferrari, Whiplash, Baby Driver, and Dunkirk.
You guys want me to go first?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. My number 10 is American Sniper. You guys see that?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's an incredible war movie set in modern day about Chris Kyle, who is a true story about Chris Kyle. Really kind of a tragic story.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know what to say about this. It's really sad.
It is. Yeah.
It's just so intense. It really gives someone who, has not served in the military a really good perspective of like things that are happening in our world and that have happened very recently in our world and things that people go through, and a really good look at soldiers coming home with PTSD and like what they're experiencing and why they act the way they do and such. Amazing acting by Bradley Cooper. Great directing by Clint Eastwood. It's just one of the best war movies I've ever seen. It's a really great character study. Chris Kyle himself, I'm really glad his story got told. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have anything to add?
No.
Okay. My number 9, I know you guys have seen this one. It's Captain America Civil War.
Mm.
I love this movie. I think that it is insane the amount of work that went into it. The fight scenes are top notch. Even for the MCU, they're top notch. I loved all the moving parts of the characters, and like all the moving storylines and how they interweave. And it's just such a satisfying movie for Captain America himself, because he is kind of the star of the film. Even though there's like a million other Avengers and stuff in there. Yeah, just really liked the story. Really liked the parallel to like kind of what's been going on in our world, on how we are so divided on so many things. And it came out at such a great time for that. Yeah, probably one of the best superhero movies I've ever seen. Sorry, what?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I have 2 things to say about this movie. I mean, great movie. It was awesome to see the Spider-Man debut into the Marvel Universe.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Great.
Yeah.
Like, that was such hype when that happened. I remember being, like, so excited for that. Because they didn't really show him in the trailers. Well, they showed him a little bit, but you didn't really know how long he would be in the movie and how important he was. Mm-hmm. So it was awesome to see, Tony Stark and him interact and stuff, and then see him fight. Mm-hmm. And when he's like talking while he's fighting the other people, it's so funny.
So funny.
Oh, such a good introduction to the MCU and to set up his other movies. Second thing, I thought the plot for this was awesome, because the whole time you were thinking that Zemo just wanted to get these other Winter Soldiers.
Don't spoil anything, man.
If people haven't seen this, are you ridiculous?
All right, fine. Go ahead. You're right.
The plot being, Zemo, you thought was going to, he's going to get these other Winter Soldiers. He's going to have an army. You didn't know what's going to happen. And then you find out he just killed them. Like, you didn't really, like, know what his plan was at that point. You're like, okay, what's the point? And he just wanted to break up Captain America and Iron Man. And he achieved that goal. Not many villains in any movies, superhero movies, can say that they achieved their goal at the end of the movie. Like, that's a really big thing in a superhero movie. For that to happen, I thought was really, really cool.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. They used Spider-Man the perfect amount. They didn't use him too much. They didn't use him too little. It was satisfying. Maybe another scene might have been too much. It might have felt forced.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to get too much into the plot for spoilers, but you're right. I mean, if you haven't seen it by now, go watch it. I don't know what you're doing. Yeah, the plot was just so dense. There was so much. It took me a few watches to even like fully grasp what was all going on, and this is just a comic book movie.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was so deep. There's so many layers to it as far as like Zemo's plan, what's going on with Bucky, and like how that kind of played into it. What's going on with the rest of the Avengers and Iaro fighting. And it all just worked together so well for me. It was insane. I almost want to say this is like a perfect superhero movie. It just hit every mark so well.
And it set those directors to be able to, finish the whole MCU and be able to direct Infinity War and Endgame so brilliantly and have, obviously.
Yeah, it was a nice little beginner for them before they directed Infinity War and Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
So, number 8 was Moonrise Kingdom, directed by Wes Anderson. Have you guys seen that?
Yes.
Okay. Not on your list?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I loved it. I think that it's probably his best movie. Even as far as, I know he's famous for his color palettes in films, and this is probably my favorite of his. His like almost summer going into fall is what it looked like all the time.
Yeah.
I loved the story. It's almost like a loss of innocence, coming of age type story.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed all of the child actors in this movie, which is something I pretty much never say.
Right.
All of them did a great job. All the adult actors did too.
Yeah.
I loved seeing Bruce Willis in this. He played an amazing role. So did Tilda Swinton and I'm blanking on his Bill Murray. They all did a great job. So entertaining. I loved the story. It was just so, I guess, sweet. It made me like reminisce on like me being that age. And I just really enjoyed the originality of it all. I had never seen a movie like it. And still haven't since I saw the movie. And I just think it's incredible. I mean, I would say it's a perfect film. It's easily Wes Anderson's best movie. So, yeah, amazing all around. Number 7 was Toy Story 3. I loved this trilogy. I mean, this is one of the best trilogies of all time.
Yes.
What? Okay, all right, whatever. The first 3 were, I think, one of the best trilogies of all time. Yeah, it was such a satisfying conclusion to that like arc of their story. I know there's a 4th one, whatever. But at the time, it was so satisfying to see the end there, to see Andy give up the toys, to see this new adventure they went on, different from the first 2. It's just so great seeing all those characters again, and it's magical, really. Like the first 2 movies are magical. This one was magical. I just loved it. It put a smile to my face that it exists, and that we could see a Toy Story 3. Animation was amazing, of course. I mean, it's Pixar. They do a great job with animation. They step up their game like every movie. And yeah, I mean, the scene near the end where they are about to be incinerated, that is crazy. The emotions.
I was a
unreal.
child just crying.
Exactly. It's crazy. I have rewatched that movie a few times.
Yeah.
And even on rewatches, my emotions are like at the same place every time in that scene.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it's a kids movie and that like kids can get into it is amazing too. Like I just really enjoy that someone of all ages could really get invested in that story.
Sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my number 7. Number 6 is what is my number 6? My number 6 is La La Land. Don't like it?
Oh, I love it, dude.
Oh, okay. I was blown away. I saw the trailers for this. Oh, sorry. What was that, Sam?
I was not impressed.
Oh man.
Well,
I was not impressed by the trailers. I thought like, well, this could be a nice little musical.
Yeah.
but it was so much more. It was the best musical I've ever seen in my life.
And I hate musicals.
That's what I hear from everyone who hates musicals.
And
They
I
like it.
love it.
Yep. It was so well done. The choreography of the dance scenes is just out of this world.
Oh, yeah.
Like, get that out of the way. That amazing job on the dance scenes and the music.
Yeah.
I still listen to some songs from the soundtrack. Great acting from Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling. They're pretty much the main two actors of the film. There's not really even another character, really.
Yeah.
They carry this story so well. They have amazing chemistry.
And the ending, though.
The ending is just, it elevates the movie even higher than it already was. It elevates
It went
musicals.
from a good to a great movie.
Yeah, it elevates musicals to a whole new level. Like, nothing like that I've even seen in a musical before. Like, that crazy amount of depth to a story. And it's just like, wow, I was not expecting this. Most movies play it safe. Like, most movies of that caliber might play it more safe. This one did not. They shot their shot. And man, there's so much to think about in this movie. About romances and relating it back to your own life.
When did you ever go out of a musical and be like, wow, we gotta really talk about this?
Yeah. It was incredible. I think that movie is a masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway,
I'm gonna have to rewatch it.
I guess you will.
So my number 10
Number
Yeah.
10.
is Infinity War. So
Yes, dude.
Awesome.
So happy that made the list.
great film, dude. It was just something. So Avengers was a movie that was very revolutionary for their time, or that time, whatever. It's just something that hadn't been done before. And then Infinity War took that another step for this era. And it was just such a good film. It was one of those movies, like, I worked in the movie theater during this, and it was a movie where people were coming out like crying, because obviously Spider-Man dies, and then they're mad. You know, some people were mad because you're their favorite character, whether it's Black Panther or I don't know the favorite character that died. I don't know, Spider-Man.
Bucky.
If your favorite character happens to be Bucky, they're just upset, you know, after all these characters died. And even though, I mean, obviously we knew Spider-Man was going to have another movie, but it was still like, wow, like that just happened in a movie, and we have to wait a whole year to figure out what's going to happen. How are they going to get out of this situation? Does Thanos survive? Like, it was just
There were so many questions. It was
blowing.
an amazing cliffhanger, dude.
Like,
Yeah.
probably the greatest cliffhanger ever, because like,
I agree.
boom, snap happened, people are disappearing, movie's over. You're like,
What just happened?
like,
Gives
you
me
can't-
chills
oh
thinking
my
about it.
gosh, like, it was amazing but terrible at the same time. Like, I
Yes.
needed
Yeah.
more and I didn't have more. It was crazy, dude.
It was the first
Ugh.
time Marvel ever really did that to you. Just left you.
Uh-huh.
And like, I think we mentioned it. No, we haven't mentioned it. No, you did. Zemo, you know, doing what he wants to do is also cool to see Thanos like do it. Like, heroes died. Like, it's just something that had never really happened at this scale of heroes, you know, dying. It was wild. And Thanos, great, amazing job.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't like,
One of the best villains we've ever seen.
yeah, if not the best. I mean, definitely could be. Oh, yeah, he did amazing.
He's almost the main character of that movie.
Yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. And to be able to see him like collect all the stones and have that impact, like emotionally, also with Gamora, like that side story, like it wasn't like a huge story, but also it was very impactful. Like to
It was
make
like-
you be
yeah.
sympathetic with Thanos, who's the villain and kills everyone. It's just a weird but good weird situation.
Mm-hmm. There are so many little scenes like that were necessary.
Mhm.
It might not like add much on their own necessarily, but to the bigger picture, it's like,
Mhm.
whoa.
And it's also, it makes me appreciate the film more. Like, obviously we talked about that in our last year's top 10 list, but then after Endgame's come out and we've thought about it more and know the answers, just looking back at it, it was just such a great film.
It
Watching
is.
both,
Mhm.
like Infinity War then Endgame again, like Infinity War is so good. It
We
was
need to have a
amazing.
back-to-back movie night sometime, 5.5 hours.
for sure, dude. No, I just did that.
Oh, you did? Did you actually? Thanks for the invite, buddy.
I was just in a mood to watch Infinity War, so I watched it, and the next day.
Nice.
No, I think I watched it one day. Anyway, Watch it in 4K.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Ugh.
All right, my number 9 is not necessarily like a very popular movie, but something that I was really impacted by. Like I really liked it. Was Warrior. Are you familiar?
Oh, yeah.
Did you not
I
like it?
I think that movie's super overrated, but go ahead. I forgot that even existed, actually. But go ahead.
Came out in
man.
2011. Again, another Tom Hardy film. Love Tom Hardy. But it was just, I don't know. It was, for me, obviously, I'm having brothers. My brothers and I are on good terms, but we've like fought before. Seeing the brother to brother just going against it, and then, the dad having to pick a side and everything. I don't know. It was just a very impactful movie, and having like obviously Tom Hardy's character was the bad boy character that didn't have a family or anything, and then having the family man and having to build up to this finale, I thought was really good. I loved mixed martial arts and being able to watch that, so seeing it on the big screen and have a story behind it, I really enjoyed it. 8 was Logan.
That's higher on my list.
All right, we'll talk about it later.
My number 7 movie was Baby Driver.
Yes! I'm so happy that's on the list.
It made it.
Anyway, Baby Driver, dude. I love this film. It was every part of the movie, every aspect was just perfect. The characters, the main character's love story, the action, the driving, it all came together. And the music, obviously, it all came together for just such a fun film. It's beautiful.
The
I walked out of that
opening,
movie. Oh, go ahead.
Like the opening 5 minutes even.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was
Seeing
incredible.
the Subaru. Yes.
And they released that scene, but no one knew it was the opening scene.
Mhm.
So everyone watched it on YouTube, and then you watch the movie and you're like, wait, this is how it opens?
Yeah, a lot of the
It was
trailer and
I
stuff
never
incredible.
saw that beforehand.
Yeah.
A lot of the trailer was that beginning, so it didn't give away a lot of the plot, which
Right,
I love
but you
in
didn't know
trailers.
that.
So you just
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
such a good film though. Obviously, what's his name?
Ansel Elgort.
Yeah, he did really well. Beautiful. Obviously, the love story was good. Kevin Spacey's character was really good. I thought he was an interesting dynamic, being kind of a role model, but also him having to, the main character's doing this to pay him back. It was an interesting aspect, and I thought it was a really good movie.
Yeah, I know. That movie, when I walked out of it the first time, I took a breath for the first time in what felt like the whole movie. It was so intense. It's nonstop.
It's a good pace though. It's
It's so
nonstop,
well-paced.
but it's not I'm overwhelmed kind of thing. It was.
Oh, not at all. It wasn't in a bad
was
way.
so good.
Yeah.
And it was cool seeing the different crews that they came up. I mean, obviously you have the main crew at the end after it was kind of a combination, but seeing the different crews was really cool and the different jobs. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Very well put together movie. I love the direction of it as well from Edgar Wright. Great
Awesome.
choice, man.
Awesome director. And then my number 6 movie is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I thought it was just a really good film. I love Spider-Man. He's definitely my favorite character in Marvel in general. And so to be able to see all these different forms of him, and we've talked about it before in our other movie, but I mean, it was just such a fun film. The music was amazing, and it felt like I was reading a comic book, which was really weird. It was really weird animation, but not a bad weird. It's just different, which I think is really good in
It's one of the
today's.
highlights of the film.
Oh yeah, today's day and age, there's so many remakes and just copying other movies. So to see a movie that's different is just really. It's really awesome for
Refreshing.
Yeah. It was really cool to see a different Spider-Man, other than Peter Parker. So to see Miles, I thought that was really cool. Obviously, we saw the other Peter Parkers in the different universes, but for the main character not to be Peter Parker, I really enjoyed. It was really refreshing, and it was in obviously animation form, but you're able to do more with that. Have the different Spider-Mans, obviously the Spider-Pig, and it looked good. So I thought that was really good. I'm excited for what they do in the future with this little universe they've made. I don't think they necessarily thought this would be as good as what it was. And so it's really awesome for them to get a hit like this and for people to really enjoy it like they did.
Okay, Sam, you're
Okay.
number 10.
My number 10 is Grand Budapest Hotel, which is what I think Wes Anderson's best film is.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's higher on my list.
Oh,
Oh, really? Okay.
Okay, we'll stop then.
We'll wait for it.
Okay. 9 is Gravity. Love a good space movie. So intense. I watched it like on a small TV and I still was like full of anxiety the whole time as if I was like in the IMAX. So good. Just a story of like survival. Sandra Bullock did amazing. Pretty much carried it herself the
Oh,
whole
yeah.
time. And yeah, loved
It was a movie that like I had never seen something quite like it in the sense that like even just the thought of spinning around in space
Yeah.
alone, and it's like
Never
that
thought
thought
about that.
freaks me out
Yeah.
so much.
Which I didn't really think about before. Now
Right.
I think about it often. Yeah. So
Right.
incredible.
Yeah, it really is. It's something that I had never seen before. The CGI is insane. Like,
Mhm.
I remember hearing someone say, like, yeah, it's crazy how they filmed part of that in space or something. And I don't think they did. I think it was all CGI. But that's like that's how real the movie looks
Yeah.
and feels. Like they got all the
Chemistry.
physics of it
Mhm.
to look so real as well.
Yeah. My number 8 is The Hateful Eight. Actually,
Great movie.
incredible. It's like 3 hours, nonstop. Though, like, it's just intense the whole time. A lot of dialogue.
Just one building.
Yeah, and it just holds your attention the entire time.
And 4K.
I
It's insane that like just
don't.
conversations could it's pretty much just conversations. And it carries the full movie
Mm-hmm.
for
and
like
there's so
3
many
hours.
different characters too, and
Yeah.
like, it doesn't feel like too much or anything.
And it also never feels like, oh, they're just trying to like have a conversation just to like fill some runtime or
Yeah.
anything. It's
No.
like every conversation progresses the story.
Yeah, and it's all like
Samuel
they're all
Jackson.
connected.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Definitely one of Quentin Tarantino's. Probably his. Never mind.
Mhm.
It's not one of his top ones.
Maybe not his best.
It's in my top 3 for Tarantino.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's 4.
Okay.
4. Where'd it go? Okay, my number 7 is Comet, which
You told me about that the other day.
Yeah.
I've never seen it though.
really good. It's an indie film. It's so beautiful. The score is incredible. I listen to it like all the time. It's a love story set like in a parallel universe. I've seen it like 5 times. I still don't quite know how it ends, like what is happening. Like it just leaves you like guessing, and like there's so many different theories, but no one really knows for sure how it ends, what it means. So
It's cool to not like end on a clear ending, is what you're saying.
yeah, and it could mean something different each time you watch it, maybe. Or
Right. The
Yeah.
ambiguity.
Number 6 is Free Fire. Either of
Oh
you
yeah, I've heard of that. I've never
seen
seen
that
it, though.
one?
Uh-uh.
Has the wonderful Brie Larson in it, among others. It's pretty great. It's like takes place pretty much all in one building, an hour and a half of like these 2 different gangs in the middle of like a shootout, and just all this different stuff is happening.
So it's the Hateful Eight cut in half.
Yeah, pretty much. And just, yeah, in this old dirty warehouse, and it's hilarious, and just the comedic timing of everything is so good. And I've seen it many, many times and never get bored. So,
I'll have to check them both out.
Yeah.
My number 5 is Your Name, which is an anime
Hunter
film.
Person. Oh, I thought you were asking me what my name was. Sorry.
Which is an anime film. Probably the best anime film I've ever seen, actually. It blows me away. I can't really say a whole lot about it. I'll tell you the premise. Basically, a boy and a girl wake up one day in completely different cities in Japan, and they have switched bodies. It's your classic like body swap scenario. And there's a lot of comedy that goes with that. But if you've never seen it, you'll never guess where the story's going. There's this major twist in it that it completely blew my mind. I was watching this with one of my friends, and when it happened, I remember we each just stood up. We were just sitting down and we stood up and we're just like yelling at the screen. We could not believe it. It was insane, the story that they had put together here. And the animation is great. I loved all the characters. One of the best stories I've ever seen in my life. This movie is incredible. I'm sorry I can't talk more about it, but I don't want to spoil it for you guys. So that's my number 5. Number 4 is Gone Girl, which have you guys seen that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Very good.
That movie is crazy as well. It's a mystery movie. You don't know what happened to a missing writer. You're kind of just like following the mystery for a lot of the film, and sometimes on rewatches, mysteries, you're kind of like, well, I already know what happens. It's kind of boring.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie I've seen like so many times, probably like 6 or 7 times, and each time I'm like, wow, I'm not bored at all. I'm so invested in the story, and I want to see each clue and everything happen, and it all unfold the way that it does, and I'm so happy when it does. Anyway, great story, great acting. It's so gripping. There's a lot to think about too. Like, it's kind of like La La Land, where you leave and they're just like, whoa, this is freaky. Well, I guess La La Land wasn't freaky, but there's a lot to think about going out of the movie, and I just left feeling so freaked out. It's probably one of, if not the best, closing shots in a movie I've ever seen. It just haunts me. It's so freaky, and I can't tell you what it is, just because there's so many twists in the film. Number 3 is a movie that is generally pretty like positively reviewed and accepted, but it's always like compared to its predecessor as being inferior, which I don't think it's as good. But yes, it is The Dark Knight Rises. This movie
definitely one of
is
the
incredible.
considerations. Yep.
Okay, I mean, obviously, The Dark Knight is probably my favorite movie of all time, and it isn't it is not as good as The Dark Knight. I'll get that out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, this movie does not strive to be a clone of The Dark Knight necessarily in its story at all. It tells a completely different story from The Dark Knight. It follows along an amazing narrative path that I wouldn't have expected after seeing The Dark Knight necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it blows my mind. Seriously, just thinking about it. The first time I watched it, I was, it was an emotional roller coaster for me. I remember watching it in IMAX 7 years ago on opening night and midnight when they still did midnight screenings. And I just loved it. It makes me happy that it exists. Just the story of Bruce Wayne in that film, seeing that come to a close in this trilogy, easily one of the best trilogies ever made. So well directed, so well acted. I love Tom Hardy's performance as Bane. He's terrifying.
It's a different terrifying than like a traditional Bane, because obviously Bane uses the venom in most comic books, and so it's cool to see his own adaptation, not having to be like all huge and having more of a different fear. And I really like the fear. I also thought the twist at the end was really really good.
Mm-hmm.
Classic Christopher Nolan.
I mean, I didn't see it coming at all, and I thought that was really, really cool. But yeah.
And yeah, just like you said, I mean, just like all of the films in this Nolan trilogy, the comic book heroes and villains are more grounded in reality than they are in the comic books.
Sure,
and I really like that spin on it.
It makes it seem more like believable that like, okay, like this could, really happen. Like Batman could be Batman. Like it's not something that's far-fetched.
Totally impossible.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what DC usually is, and so it's cool to see its own grounded version of these DC adaptations.
Yeah, I love this movie just because, I mean, I know it's very positively accepted, but it's always like compared to The Dark Knight too much. And I just wish people could see the greatness of that story for what it is and how different it is from the first 2 entries in that series. There's a lot of metaphors going on, so much symbolism, so much depth to the story, on how a society can function. Yeah, amazing CGI. guys, I didn't even mention the fight scene at the end is incredible. But
Mm-hmm.
that fight scene between Batman and Bane, the first one, it is filmed so well.
Mm-hmm.
You know exactly what's going on all the time. It's never like blurry and like too many quick cuts or anything in the sewer. Yeah, I love that scene. It's beautiful watching that. I mean, the end fight scene just gets my blood pumping too. I love that thing, but yeah, amazingly shot as well.
And the opening was awesome with the plane scene.
Oh, great,
Yes.
dude!
Great.
Shot so well. Cinematography A+.
Mhm.
This is a perfect movie. Seriously,
For sure.
I think it's underrated. Anyway, number 2.
Mhm.
Inception. Which somehow Hunter has never seen, which is almost as mind-blowing as the movie itself. I
Yes.
don't even know where to begin on Inception. It's
No spoilers.
no spoilers. It's
no,
unlike
man.
something I had ever seen
Yeah.
to that point. I saw it in the movie theater, and I knew instantly that it was a great movie, but I didn't know quite why. I mean, I was like
Right.
13, and I've watched it so many times since. I've seen it probably a dozen times,
Mm-hmm.
and each time I get something new out of it.
Yes.
This is the epitome of a film with layers, in story and just like visually as well. I mean, as far as the story you see on screen and the inner story as well within the characters' minds and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's insane. Like how deep this movie gets, as far as like all the moving parts on like which dream they're in and how it all works so well. And it's just such an original story. Great acting,
Mhm.
very emotional as well.
Mm-hmm.
So many amazing twists in classic Christopher Nolan style. Yeah, do you have anything to add, Sam?
I should. It's on my list. It's not this high.
Okay.
But, yeah. Like I said, the layers, cinematography, though, like,
I know.
I
It's
just can't
beautiful.
even...
Yeah.
Seeing it in theaters was incredible.
Yeah.
But even at home, it's, like, still incredible.
hmm
The whole world building, and just...
And the score as well.
Yeah.
Forgot to mention this for Dark Knight Rises. Amazing score for that too.
Love it.
And the sound mixing and the sound design for each of those films
Yeah.
is like beyond anything that I've seen.
Mm-hmm. Visually, like, when the use of slow motion even
Mhm.
in there,
Emotion.
there is some slow motion. And it's very important.
Every scene is
yeah.
is just perfect. This is my
The
number.
details are incredible in it.
Yeah, so many details.
Yeah, from the beginning and then just how it all
There's
connects at the
details?
end.
Yeah, how the plot weaves in and out. It's genius how this film was even created.
The tale's pretty good.
This is probably my number 4 favorite movie of all time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is insane.
My number 5 was Dark Knight Rises. So we already talked about that. Obviously.
Oh, dude, I'm so happy that was on your list. Oh, man.
My number 4 was then Django Unchained, one of Quentin Tarantino's movies. I really enjoyed it. It may be a little bit higher than maybe it should be, but for me, again, it was just a meaningful movie for me. I remember watching it with my grandpa. I was like maybe 16 or so, I want to say. Yeah, that's up. And so it was one of my first like rated R movies I really got to watch, and it was just such a really, really fun, really good film. DiCaprio did amazing in his role, and obviously Jamie Foxx was awesome. It was kind of cool to see more of that, like Civil War, like that era of what it was and what it meant to be like a bounty hunter, to be black. Obviously that was like really cool. So I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was one of Quentin Tarantino's better films. But yeah,
Yeah, I think it's a pretty well-made film, man. I agree.
for sure. It was really, from top to bottom, a really good story, and it was one of his better stories that he's had. Obviously, he has better action in some of the other films, but I mean, not to say the action wasn't, bad by any means. But yeah, I thought it was a really good story.
Yeah,
That's what I liked about it.
very hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
My number 3 was a film that I thought was beautifully made, and I'm so glad that what came of this film happened. That's The Revenant.
Ah, dude, yes.
So happy
that is a
DiCaprio
gorgeous film.
finally got his award he deserved. He's such a good actor. I'm so glad that, the voters were able to give this to him. He deserved it. Maybe there's some other movies that he maybe should have won it, but he deserved it for this one. This was a no-doubter. Such a good film. Obviously with, Tom Hardy was awesome in this. Love Tom Hardy. He's on my list all the time. He's barely in a bad movie.
I think he was actually better than
Yeah.
Leo in that movie.
Which, did he get a nomination for that?
I don't know. He probably should have if he didn't, but...
Anyway, yeah. I mean, he was awesome in this. Obviously, it was just a really interesting film with it, how it was filmed, with all, like, the wilderness and whatnot, with the, the bear. It's just such a good film.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, the whole story is kind of simple, but yet it's something that, like, I hadn't seen before in that setting at all.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
And just, like, seeing that man versus wild type of movie with the amount of effects it had, the high production design.
But in that time period, like, it really just fit really well. Like, the man versus wild in that time period, but also, like you said, the scenery, the, effects, it all just came together for a good movie.
Right. And I know I said production design, but actually that whole thing was filmed in natural lighting.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say production design, I just mean, like, the fact that they were able to film it the way they did.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Oh,
that movie
for sure.
is a marvel to look at.
For sure. Okay. Next.
Mm-hmm.
Then my number 2 is Grand Budapest
Wow.
Hotel.
Hi.
Is it higher than yours?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Guess I
Mine was
already said that mine was
10
higher.
maybe.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right, of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just really enjoyed this film. It was such a good film.
So funny.
Okay, so my dad got it from, like, the library, I think. He's like, you want to watch this? I was like, that looks so stupid. Why would I watch that? So I didn't watch it with him, but then I watched it, like, later. It's like, Dad, that movie was really good. Why didn't I watch that? It was just, I don't know. The trailers, it just made it seem like, I don't know, just not my type of movie. But when I watched it, it was just really fun and really good. I'm so glad I was able to watch it, and I really enjoyed it. I think definitely going in with low expectations helps that, because obviously when you go in with high expectations, that really hinders your viewing experience. I think that's why I try to have low expectations, not low, but just neutral expectations is a better word.
Keep them in check.
Yes, because that just really opens your eyes to just be able to enjoy the film. So, but anyway, really, really good film. It was, the director, obviously good.
Yep. The color palette, as Wes Anderson's always are, is incredible.
Lots of pink in that movie.
Lots of pink. It's so funny. I remember I got it from the library after I'd seen it. My mom wanted something funny, and I was like, this movie will make you laugh. She hated it. And I laughed the whole time. So it's not for everyone, I guess. But it's so funny. It's like non-stop moving. I was like, how is this story still going? It's only like an hour and a half. And it's
that's a good point.
just incredible. Yeah.
That was actually
really
the
liked it.
first Wes Anderson movie I'd seen.
Yeah?
Yeah, that was my introduction to Wes Anderson. I had no idea anything what it was going to be like.
Yeah.
I love that movie
It's-
too. Really good original story on that
Oh,
one.
for sure.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's always refreshing to get a good original story,
Mhm.
and they did a really good job. So,
Yeah.
All right, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is Logan,
Oh,
which was also on yours earlier.
It was on mine earlier. It was just a really good film. It was something that was, I believe it was like one of the first films that was able to be like rated R. Or
Yeah.
was Deadpool before that? I think it was.
This is my first comic book film. Yeah, Deadpool came out before that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was the one of your more intense movies, because Deadpool came out, it was rated R before that, but this was just, that was more of a comedy. This was very intense, something that we hadn't really seen before, and it was such a good wrap-up story for him. Obviously, Hugh Jackman, no one's ever going to be as good as
Incredible.
him as the Wolverine, and so it was really good to give him a send-out story. It was really, really good.
It was so
Well, it's
sad.
your pick, so we'll let
Yeah.
you talk about
I
it.
mean, yeah. It was sad.
Very, very sad
so
movie,
sad.
but at the same
Tragic.
time, yeah.
Yeah. Also heartwarming, though, with the kid. I can't think of her name.
X-23.
X-23.
That's the only name she has in that.
The only one that
I'm
matters.
pretty sure there's another name.
Doesn't matter.
Anyway, their story though, that was awesome to
Mm-hmm.
see the Wolverine after he's been like isolated for so long to
Mhm.
like be back with a child like how he used to do. Yeah, and then his relationship with Xavier still, now he cares for him. So good. Loved it.
Guys, that came this close to making my list. It,
Yeah.
it pained me to keep it off. It is one of the best comic book movies I've ever seen in my life.
Sure.
Yeah,
It raised the bar for the X-Men series, but for comic book movies in general.
Mhm.
yeah.
There's so much going on in that film that like I had never seen in a comic book movie
Mhm.
before. So gripping. Wolverine's one of my favorite superheroes anyway,
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
and this
It was very.
so satisfying to me to see him in this. To
Mhm.
see this story that he was in. It was so hardcore, so real. It's filmed so well. The action scenes, the opening shot just tells you everything you need to know about what
Yeah.
this movie's gonna be. It's intense.
Mhm.
It's like it's
They
a
hold
good.
nothing back.
It's a good mix of futuristic, but not like too far fetched futuristic.
Yeah.
It's like you could tell
Yeah,
it's in the
that's a really good point.
future, but like it wasn't like okay, this could happen in the next few years. Like it was really really good. I really enjoyed that aspect of it because you could really relate to it a little bit more and be more involved in with it.
It did. It felt like a very real future that could happen in
Mhm.
2027, which is I think when it takes place.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
And going off like that, it was rated R. Like they did it so well though. They didn't like overuse. Just sometimes when things are rated R, you're like, oh, they're gonna just cuss the whole time, and it's like they just did that just to get the rating or something.
it was an R-rated movie.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like it was trying to push for that.
Right.
Just the subject matter and what it was dealing with, it had to be rated
It had
R.
to be, yeah.
So
Let's see. What am I on?
4.
4. Inception.
yes,
Which
all right.
we already
Good
talked
choice.
about that.
Anything to add though?
I don't think so. I think we did that one pretty well.
I do have one more thing to
Oh,
say
okay.
about that movie, and that's that it to me that movie just seems like it is a blockbuster, but not in the sense that how most of them are now. They're very like unoriginal. They're all sequels or remakes and
Yeah.
whatever superhero films. This one just feels like what I could be so wrong on this, guys, but to me, this feels like what so many other films try to be and like try to achieve with its own film. And this succeeds on every level. Emotion-wise, character-wise, story-wise, it's crazy. Visually, action. It's so good. I'm done. I would go on for so long, guys. I could go in so in depth. This video would be like 2 hours long. So, anything else to add about that, though?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
All right, number 3.
Number 3, Rogue One, a Star Wars story.
It's very very good. It was such a good film because it was able to just tell a story and then boom, you're like done. Like you don't like there's no need for this to be a trilogy, which is
No.
what everything in today's world seems like. It's all setting up for another movie. This just told a good story and then you're done.
Yeah.
And that's what I really liked about it. And obviously like the scene at the end with Darth Vader. Oh,
That was so satisfying.
So
Like,
Best
it
scene in the
chills.
movie.
good, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Carrie Fisher came out the same year she died.
So that was very
that was
impactful.
extra.
It was like a few days before.
Emotional.
It was just a few days before, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So that was emotional.
The main character
The
did really good.
characters, the whole just story, and you're like, you know, they're not gonna make it out of this because they're not in any of the other movies, and just why would they? But it was so emotional, so good.
I thought they were gonna get out, but
Did you?
Mm.
That's
Are you hungry?
a little bit, yeah. Anyway, so good. Yeah, I cry every time. Anyway, 2. You know which one it is? Thor Ragnarok.
How did you know? Did you see her list?
Yeah.
no.
Okay.
No.
I just know it's one of her favorite movies.
Okay.
Favorite movie ever. Well, not ever. It's not number 1. But it's so funny. Thor, like, his first 2 movies, he's fine in it, but they're nothing great. Like, sorry, Natalie Portman kind of ruins those for me.
Yeah, she's not very good in those.
No.
But she's coming back.
And should be okay. So he's always like better in the Avengers movies when he's with others, and then this one was just totally different. Absolutely hilarious. Yeah.
What?
Because
The
of
director.
him.
Oh.
Yeah.
He did
Yeah,
a
I
really
mean,
good job.
yeah, they took a really big risk, honestly.
They
like,
did.
In hindsight, it's like, well, yeah, Thor Ragnarok was great.
Mhm.
But, like, changing the tone that drastically, that could have messed up really bad.
Totally, but they like had to because no one really likes the first
Mhm.
two Thors.
And adding
I
Hulk,
like the first Thor, for the record, everybody. I actually like
It's
the
not
second
that
one,
good.
too, but it's
Oh,
not as good.
that's the worst Marvel movie.
Alright, well, I'm a fan of them both. But this one's the
But
best.
yeah, they couldn't do a third one like that.
At that tone, no.
No.
And the story had to run dry. So being able to have Planet Hulk, which is one of the biggest, one of the biggest stories in the Marvel universe, or
Mhm.
in my opinion, but Hulk not quite good enough to have his own story. So being able to bring in Thor and Loki and collide the two stories worked really, really well. Also, my favorite character from the movie, Korg. Korg is
Korg!
amazing.
Yes!
Love it, dude.
So
He's so,
great.
Amazing,
so
yes.
funny.
He's so positive, full of laughs.
At the end, though, when he died, the little thing, he thought he was dead.
Little Meek. I've been carrying him around.
Oh,
So
dude.
cute.
Oh,
Jeff Goldblum.
Uh-huh.
he did
He
good.
finally got in a Marvel movie. Great.
It changed the tone so drastically, I said, though. But it didn't change it so much to the point where it took me out of the movie. Like, it still felt very much like it was in the MCU.
Yeah, and it felt very comic book like.
Yes,
Too.
very much so.
Yes.
And you make
It's a friend for war.
and you bring up a really good point about how they integrated the Planet Hulk storyline, and that's what Marvel does really well. They don't necessarily feel so like restricted to like tell the
No.
exact story. They just pull from what
What
they
they
want
want,
and
yeah.
how it will fit in their story that they're telling, and they do that masterfully, really.
For sure.
So that was pulled off well in this one. So,
Yeah.
great movie. Was that your number 2?
Yeah.
Okay, guys. It is time for number 1 movie of the decade. This is 10 years worth of movies. What we think the best movie out of those was. We've seen hundreds of movies, guys. To have this at number 1, that's making a statement.
I'm excited to hear his number 1.
Very excited.
I have no
So
zero
we
clue.
don't know what any of these movies are, guys. And my number 1 is Boyhood.
Ooh.
Let down.
I know you have people like him and you have people like me. I watched this movie with one of my best friends, and we grew up basically in the exact same time period where Mason grew up. He's the main character of the story. And this movie, for those of you who don't know, is about Mason. It was started in the year 2002, I believe, or somewhere around there, and went all the way to, I think, 2013. So it was actually filmed
Mhm.
for each year. It was filmed like maybe 20 minutes, 15 minutes or so in 2002, another in 2003, another in 2004.
Mhm.
And it showed the progression of Mason's life throughout those years. And the director, Richard Linklater,
No.
he's so incredibly like incorporated many like pop culture things or just political or like little products and things that were going on in
Mhm.
each of those time periods. The conversations are like things that would be going on in those time periods, and just like looking back and seeing that, it was almost like reliving my own life. It was like a 3-hour movie, and I could have watched that for another 3 days. I remember me and my friend took a break watching that movie, and it felt like I had just like lived Mason's life. It was unlike any movie experience I'd ever had before, ever, and probably will ever have again. It was crazy. I mean, the amount of technical work that went into the film is like a marvel of its own achievement.
Mhm.
But to be able to get the characters right and to make us care about such almost a mundane story, because it's really
It
just this
is.
boy's life growing up.
Yeah.
And it's nothing special, maybe reading it on paper, but to see it is an experience unlike any other I've even seen in a movie. This is probably my number 3 favorite movie of all time, and it might even go up. It blows my mind. I think about this movie every day since I've seen it. It is so good, guys. Thank you for filming this movie over 11 years or 12 years or whatever it was, Richard Linklater, right? Thank you, man. Go ahead. Well, do you guys have anything to say about that?
Nope.
Okay.
No, I mean, you said it all. It's incredible, though.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen it.
My number one movie of the decade is a movie that, after watching it in the theaters, it might not necessarily be the number one, but after rewatching it in 4K and with like on my awesome surround sound, just blew my mind. It's not a movie you would necessarily like, but again, Tom Hardy, Mad Max Fury
Oh,
Road.
yes!
This is also my number one.
Oh, is it? No
Yeah.
way. Okay, yeah, great movie.
Such a good movie,
So
dude.
good.
Watching it in 4K again and just seeing the detail, all the details that go into the movie, the scenes are just mind-blowing, dude.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much detail went into this movie. Tom Hardy is amazing in this movie. Tom Hardy, thank you for your service. Oh, but I can't get over the scene. Oh my gosh, I can't. It's so good.
So good. Beautiful. Not a lot of dialogue in that one either.
But it really need dialogue.
No, you don't need it. Great storytelling.
Just the desert scenes, like when the whole sandstorm is coming and they're like fighting against it, and when they're in it, dude. Oh my gosh, it's so cool to see all these different like cars that they've like rigged up and all the different vehicles. And the ending was really good. It was a good, satisfying ending. Oh,
Hardly any CGI was used.
Yeah, a lot of the cars
Incredible.
they actually built
Oh,
for that
yeah.
movie, yeah.
Yeah.
And
all the
they filmed.
stunts,
It wasn't
the
CGI they
fire,
filmed,
all
yeah.
of it was like real.
and you could tell like it was really like
Yeah,
oh,
it
was
felt
just
real.
So good.
It was non-stop, and just the whole journey, like to get to the green place or whatever,
Mhm.
and then like to be for nothing pretty much, and you're like, what did we just watch for like an hour? And then it's like, okay, we have to do the whole thing back though,
Uh-huh.
and it was incredible.
But you weren't like
No.
upset when that happened, as far as like, wow, I just wasted my time.
No,
It
it,
didn't
was
derail
just
the story.
upsetting. Like, but you're sad,
You're sad
like
for
for
the characters.
Furiosa. Like
Mm.
she's
Yeah.
sitting there in the sand, and that's like visually
Right.
was a stunning shot. And she like rips off her mechanical arm.
I picture it now, yes.
It's
Mm.
so good.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's funny you mentioned Tom Hardy, though, because I actually love this movie probably as much as you guys. But the reason I couldn't put it on my list
Don't say Tom.
was because of Tom Hardy. I don't think he did a good job at all. If you watch the previous 3 Mad Max films, he is nothing like the character of Mad Max. All he does is
He's not
grunt.
supposed to be the same.
He is.
Stop.
It's Mad Max.
No, that's the point. It's a different.
It's a different mix.
It's the same Mad Max. I don't know
think
what these
so.
people are talking about. It's a progression of the same story. It's a sequel to Thunderdome. And all he does is grunt in the movie, and it was very upsetting to me.
That's all he needs to do.
That's all I need to do. Good job, Tom Hardy.
Furiosa.
Thank you. Tom.
Other than that, I agree with you
Incredible.
guys.
I was ready
Beautiful.
to shave my head and be like Furiosa. I was like so pumped for her. Obviously, I didn't. That would have been terrible. But I was like, I want to be her. She was just such a great female lead.
She was a great character. Wow, that's crazy. I didn't expect you guys to have the same number one. But I agree. It was visually one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Technically a masterpiece as far as the stunts and the action goes. One of the best action movies ever created. I really hope there's a sequel. I
Oh,
mean,
for sure.
I don't know
There
how
should be.
this hasn't happened yet.
Mhm.
This is like one of the most like revered films of the decade, not just by you guys, but of everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for checking out our list, guys. Please be looking for more reviews and videos and top 10 stuff this year and this decade, because we're going to have a lot. So be on the lookout for these two. They might pop up on the channel again sometime. So anyway, let us know what your top 10 are in the comments below. Please make sure to like and subscribe. And we'll see you for our next review.